We're back, and I don't want to oversell it, but I am about to tell you one of my most favorite Bible stories, so buckle up. Once upon a time, there was a man named Jonah, and an angel of the Lord said, "Jonah, you must go to Nineveh and tell them to change their ways." And Jonah, being a good man, said, "Yes, of course, absolutely, I will go." And he immediately ran completely the opposite direction to the shore where there were a bunch of boats, and he bought a ticket so he could go far, far, far away from Nineveh. But while he was on the boat, a storm came up, and the boat started to sink. The sailors threw everything they could overboard, thinking that was the problem. But when Jonah finally said, "No, I am the one. I told God I would go to Nineveh, and I did not. I'm the cause of this storm," they threw Jonah overboard. Which wouldn't have been that big a deal, except that there was a giant fish that tried to eat him. Oh no! And poor Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights. Can you imagine how dark it was? How stinky it was? He sang hymns and psalms while he was there in the belly of the fish. "Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I guess I'll go eat worms if I had a worm." But then while he was there, he cried out to God, and God rescued him. More or less. The fish, it says, vomited him up on the beach. Ew. And Jonah saw the angel of the Lord again saying, "Jonah, go to Nineveh." And he went to Nineveh. And he preached the shortest, the most effective, and the maybe not nicest sermon that has ever been preached. He said, in the middle of the city, 3 days more and Nineveh will be destroyed. That's it. That's the sermon. And then he left. Jonah went and sat on a hill overlooking the city of Nineveh, and he watched and waited to see when God would destroy the city of his enemies that he had run away from. He sat there on the hill thinking, "Ha ha, they will get theirs. I have suffered. My people have suffered. I'm ready for God to destroy them." And while he was sitting there, it was very hot, and God made a bush to appear behind him, and he was so thankful because of the bush. But then God made a worm destroy the bush, and he was so sad because there was no bush, and he thought, "I might just die." And then, miracle of miracles, the people of Nineveh repented, which means they saw the bad things they were doing, which is why God sent Jonah in the first place, and they changed their lives. They turned around. Jonah was not happy about this. He was not happy about the bush. He was not happy about the people of Nineveh getting a second chance. And God said, "Why are you so upset about this? There are thousands of people in this city and also many animals. How could I not be concerned for these people?" And that's how it happened. Pretty much exactly like that. I think the Bible's telling is actually funnier, and you can go read it yourself. It's only like 4 chapters long, very short. And I'm not kidding. There are bits in it that may seem like, oh, is that meant to be funny? Yeah, it is. This story is ridiculous. It's completely over the top and silly. So please go read it and laugh. It's good times. So let me tell you about Nineveh. Jonah is called to go to the city of Nineveh. And you might be like, okay, some town. Why did he run away? Well, Nineveh was the hated enemy of Israel because Nineveh was the capital of Babylon. Babylon had invaded them killed people, destroyed the temple, took their stuff, really hurt huge numbers of people, and then took people into captivity in Babylon, took them basically to prison, kept them away from their homes. It's horrible, horrible story. So, like, of course they didn't like Nineveh. I would have run away too. Are you kidding me? So Jonah is called by God to go to this city, Nineveh. And he's supposed to go tell them what? Well, God doesn't tell him a whole lot about what to say. Presumably, he's supposed to tell them about God's love, how God created the world, all this kind of stuff. But he goes in to this massive, massive city. Would have taken 3 days to walk across. He goes to this huge city. He walks 1 day into it, and he says one thing. In 3 days, this city will be destroyed. Yay! I imagine if anybody heard him at all, they kind of looked at him like, cool, dude. Whatever. But that's not what happened. Every single person in Nineveh, says the story, so again, it's a little extreme, a little silly, but every single person in Nineveh changed their ways. Every single one of them said, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I've been hurting people this whole time. Like, we gotta do something different here. And it wasn't just the people who changed their ways. All the animals did too. Like the chickens. That's what it says. Like I told you, it was silly. But it's also kind of not silly because God is calling us as well to go to the people that we consider enemies and share love and the story of the universe with them. Now, who is that? Who do you consider enemies? Who do you consider that cruel and horrible? I mean, in this divided world we live in, honestly, it's not any more divided than it ever has been. We did fight a civil war over 100 years ago, but we are definitely divided. We're definitely arguing with each other and definitely angry with each other, politically, maybe racially, across gender lines, across class lines. I mean, all kinds of ways. This country's kind of a mess right now. So probably it's not that big a stretch to say there's somebody you think of poorly, right? I do. I gotta repent for that, right? And if you're a kid watching this, maybe you're thinking about things you've seen on the news or you've heard your parents talking about, things that you care about now too. But maybe it's also like somebody in your classroom. I was in 3rd grade when I had my first enemy. Yeah, I did not like this kid. He did not like me. I have no idea why. No memory of why. But man, I would have taken him if I was a fighter. I wasn't. And when I think about that, like, God wanted me to go to that kid and say, stop being cruel, stop being mean. Maybe God wanted that kid to come to me and say the same thing. That's hard. That's really hard. So that's kind of my question for y'all this week. Who is Nineveh for you? You can talk about that in your families if you want to. Who are those people that you would think of as enemies or who might think of you as enemies? And not because you want to, right? I don't think any of us want to have enemies. But who is it that you kind of, when you hear their name or you see them talked about on television or whatever, and you go, ugh, ugh. Or, why won't they stop? What would it be like to go to them? What would it be like to say maybe something a little bit kinder than in 3 days your city will be destroyed? But maybe that's the truth telling that Pastor Alex was talking about last week. Maybe there are people in your life that you need to sit down and have maybe a kind conversation, but a firm one with. When you do this, it hurts me. When you do this, it hurts this person I care about. Whew, that's a lot, right? But to say it clearly and honestly. And then to listen. What comes out of that? Now, I have to tell you guys, Nineveh was great. Like, they heard a pretty not good sermon, and they were all like, yeah, great, let's all change our ways. It's fantastic. Miracles do happen. Hooray! There's hope. Also, sometimes we have those conversations, and they don't go very well. Maybe that's when we walk away and sit on the hill and watch. Hopefully not as sarcastically as Jonah. But maybe we have to say our piece and then walk away too. That could be a thing. So I would dearly love to hear how your conversations go related to this. What do you guys talk about in your family? You don't have to necessarily tell us who you think those enemies are, but what would it be like? What does that feel like when you think about it in your body? What would you say to someone? Maybe share that with us in the comments on this video, or share your stories on a Facebook page, or just message me or the other clergy to ask. Blessings, friends.